What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my walkthrough for the challenges in Duels of the Planeswalkers 2013. Today we're taking on a pretty tricky little challenge called Replica's Revolt. I actually really like this one, but it's kind of hard to explain like the reasoning behind. It's one of those things that you really have to look at. Nature's Revolt has brought all of the lands on the battlefield to life. Can you engineer the situation to win this turn? When we get in here, we're going to be able to see exactly what that means. If you're not familiar with the card, you don't expect this visual assault on your eyes. It looks like friggin' somebody vomited on the table. Just got mana everywhere in this situation. There's just tons of stuff on both sides that we have to sift through, but luckily we don't really have to look at all the mana, because all the mana is just 2/2 creatures. We don't have to look at those because they're not playables. What we want to look at is all the playable cards. That's the very first thing we want to do. So don't be overwhelmed by all these friggin' 2/2s running around. We're actually going to take care of that in a minute. But it can be just a little overwhelming at first. You can also just try and like swing in. But the thing is that once you count everything up, we're not going to be able to do lethal to Garruk. We're actually going to only be able to do about 4 or 5 damage to him because we have more creatures than he does at this point, but he's able to block us down and we can't do the full 6. So just looking at the board state right now, we're in trouble. So let's take a look at our playables. We've got Acidic Slime, which is actually one of my favorite friggin' cards. I love this thing right now in Standard. Is a 5-drop, 2/2 with Death Touch, which is, I mean, the Death Touch is just gravy on top, because when this card comes into the battlefield, you destroy a target artifact, enchantment, or land. This is a huge player in my Bust a Land deck, which is a lot of fun to play. We've also got over here, we got Nature's Revolt, and that's the culprit that's bringing all the lands to life as 2/2 creatures. It's a huge pain in the ass. Also on his side, we have Ursapine. Target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn for 1 green mana. He's also a 3/3 creature. He's a pretty goofy looking dude right there. But that's all the playables that are actually on Garruk's side of the field. The rest is just mana chilling at 2/2. We're going to go down here and look at Archaeomancer. When Archaeomancer enters the battlefield, return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. It's an awesome card. It's a 1/2, but you get to recycle cards. It's awesome in this format. It's a pretty awesome card regardless. We've also got Ether Adept. When Ether Adept enters the battlefield, return target creature to its owner's hand. So that means that we could bounce, pretty much anything out on the field. Really, the only thing that would make sense to bounce would be Archaeomancer. Well, let's keep taking a look at the rest of our hand here. We got Talran, the Sky Summoner. He's pretty awesome. You get a 2/2 blue flying dude every time you cast an instant or a sorcery when he's out on the field. We've got Spectral Flight, which we're going to get into why this card isn't playable in this situation in a minute, but it gives target creature a +2/+2 in flying. We've also got Volition Reigns, which is equally useless in this scenario, especially when you consider the fact that we have Rite of Replication, which is going to essentially do the same thing as this, only for quite a bit cheaper. Rite of Replication is a 4-drop that lets you create a token copy of any creature card on the battlefield, but if you decide to drop it for 9, you actually get 5 of those copies instead, and that's very important in this challenge. It's actually one of the linchpins. So just looking at Rite of Replication and Ether Adept, as well as Archaeomancer out on the field, we know that our graveyard is basically fully playable, so let's go ahead and take a look at all the cards in here. Now, we're going to start off with Downpour, and this is where we're going to touch on why Spectral Flight is useless as well. It's the fact that when we have to tap mana, we have to stop thinking about mana just as mana and thinking of mana as 2/2 attack. So this is going to cost us 4 attack to tap up to 3 target creatures. Now, since we already couldn't deal lethal in a swing all-out offensive, if we lose 4 attack simply to tap 3 target creatures, we're still not going to be able to attack him for lethal damage. So if we look at these casting costs, cards that would usually help us in an all-out offensive as -2 to our attack, is each mana point as a -2 to our attack, it's going to make a lot of these cards unplayable. Like I was saying, Spectral Flight, if you recall, gives a creature +2/+2, but it costs 2, so essentially we are, I think it costs 2, it might cost 3, let's go here. Costs 2. So essentially we are spending 4 attack to give a creature 2 attack, which doesn't make any sense. We're going to keep going with Inundate, and this card is a friggin' trap. Now, a lot of new players, or even veterans for that matter, tend to forget the fact that your mana is colorless. Your mana does not have a color. That means that all of your islands out there are non-blue creatures. They're non-blue permanents. The mana allows you to add colored mana to your mana pool that then you can use to cast colored spells, but as far as the game's concerned, the mana itself is not a blue spell. It's not blue in any stretch of the imagination, which means that Inundate is a complete trap. It is a trick put here just to try and get us to make a misstep, because then we'll get all those cards back in our hand. It'll make us real sad. Diminish, just 1/1, it's crap. Hysterical Blindness, neg 4, neg-0 to everybody. Unsummon, I mean, Unsummon's a good card. In this situation, it doesn't really help us because it's costing us 2 attack to play it. Reality Spasm is all equally useless for the same reasons. We've also got Rite of Replication and Rite of Replication down there. So in total, we have 3 playable Rite of Replications. If we decided to play Rite on Archaeomancer, we could actually get 3. We could get the one that we played, and the other 2, we could have 3 back in our hand. So just looking at the field, this is really a challenge where we have to take a look at this and figure out exactly what we're trying to do before we even try to do anything. We have to really plan this out from the beginning. Now, taking a look at the board, we know that an all-out offensive is not going to work. So we need to start thinking about getting rid of all of these lands that are creatures. We also know that we have Rite of Replication and we can duplicate Archaeomancer. And we also know that Rite of Replication can duplicate 5 copies of any creature. The main concern that we have here right now is the fact that once we get rid of all these 2/2 forests and 2/2 islands, we're only going to have Archaeomancer left to take Garruk from 6 to 0. And we can cast about fruitively, try and look in our graveyard and our hand all over the place for something that's going to, buff our creature, but the only thing on the entire field that buffs at all is Ursipine over here. Now here's where things get a little tricky. We know we have Rite of Replication, we know that that makes 5 tokens, and now we know that the only way that we can effectively win is if we control Ursipine, we somehow control 5 green mana to use him, and we still have our 1 Archaeomancer ready to attack. The problem with this is that if we just Rite of Replication the green mana, the green creatures, if you will, they're going to come under our play with Summoning Sickness, which means we can't use their tap ability, which in this instance means that we can't get any green mana from them. So we know what we want to do, we just need to kind of come up with a way to do it, or, order to do it. Well, the first step, regardless, is going to be getting all these Rites of Replication. So let's go ahead and cast this on Archaeomancer for the full 5, because we want to get all of them back. And we'll get both of these rites down here. We'll grab this one, and it makes no difference what else we get, but we might as well grab stuff that is possibly playable. So we'll grab those 5 cards right there. I grabbed an Unsummon, Downpour, maybe if something goes haywire, that could be useful in coming turns. Just if this was a real combat scenario. But the real thing that we need to pay attention to is the fact that we have 3 Rite of Replications now. That's the most important thing. Like I said, those creatures have Summoning Sickness, so they don't help us at all. But the next step is going to be the most important step, because we know that with Rite of Replication, we can copy 5 forests. The bonus, the icing on the cake for this, is that if we then destroy Nature's Revolt, we will be able to use those forests because we'll still control them. They'll just no longer be creatures. And that's really the linchpin of this, is that if we do this in the correct way, in the correct order, we're able to copy the mana and still have enough left over to use it, because we're going to do this. Then we are going to just cast it for the standard. We don't need cast it for 9. We aren't able to, but that doesn't even matter. We go down here and never forget about Acidic Slime's ability. We make 1 copy of Acidic Slime. That allows us to bust this enchantment right here, which makes our mana that we just stole playable. We have to be careful how we select the mana that we play for the last Rider replication. Remember that is left stick. That's L3 for PlayStation 3. So now we're just going to Rider replication the final piece of the puzzle, which will be Ursipine. We get to use his ability even though he has Summoning Sickness, so now we just have to go through and make sure we give our playable Archaeomancer, our attackable Archaeomancer, +1 5 times, and you can see that this gets a little monotonous, but that is going to be how we get up to the 6 attack that is going to kill Garruk and win this challenge for us. So now all that's going to trigger. Like I was saying before, this situation can be a little daunting, it can be a little tricky, but once we realize, 5 is the magic number here. Once we realize that we can steal the 5 mana, that we need a 5 buff, that we have to use this Archaeomancer because everything will have Summoning Sickness, it becomes pretty clear. It's not the hardest challenge by any means, but it is one that can be kind of tricky to see. It just clears itself up a little bit once you realize the limitations. This one really teaches us that we have to look at the board state and realize which cards we have to overcome in order to defeat our opponent. It's a pretty cool challenge. I actually really like this one. It uses some mechanics that I really find interesting. I hope you guys liked this episode. I hope it helped you out. Like I said, this challenge can be kind of tricky. Tomorrow we're going to be taking on the last of the challenges, so I really hope to see you guys there. But even if I don't, thanks for watching this particular episode.